goddesses, let me let you in on a little secret. Weed, this little love nugget right here, weed makes me really horny. Like straight up, it is one of my favorite aphrodisiacs to date. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so like for 4,000 years plus, medicine women, village doctors, you know, people of all kinds who are administering medicines of all kinds have been recommending cannabis to people in order to help with some natural ailments, right? And it wasn't really up until like the past 100 years with prohibition of cannabis that we stopped doing this. So people have been using cannabis for traditional, topical, or gynecological uses for thousands of years. Cannabis has so many healing properties. And when you concentrate it and use it locally on an area of your body, the results are outstanding. As a human though, who talks about weed, uses weed, recommends weed to some of my patients, there is one major side effect though, and that's the topic of today's video that I want to talk to you about, and it's called cotton vagina. Yeah, cotton vagina. Let me just tell you what exactly that's about. Okay, so cotton vagina is what happens when you smoke some weed, vape some weed, eat some weed, take some weed, and then your vagina dries up. It just kind of stops lubricating or doesn't lubricate to the, like with the amount that you're normally used to, right? And that we call colloquially cotton vagina. Some people call it a whole bunch of different stuff, but when you think of cotton vagina, what most of you are probably thinking about is cotton mouth. All right, cotton mouth is really common. We've talked about cotton mouth for so long when talking about consuming weed, right? When we smoke some weed, our mouth gets a little dry and you just want to keep drinking water and keep hydrating because hydration is super sexy. But here's the thing, it not only happens to your mouth, it also happens to your vagina, and here's why. So the science says this. Let's start with our mouth because we know why it happens in our mouth, right? We know why cotton mouth happens. Some people call it cotton mouth, having the pasties, dough mouth, for example, right? We know why it happens in your mouth. So it's AKA xerostomia. And xerostomia happens not only to people when they consume cannabis, but sometimes with certain medications that people take, right? And what xerostomia is a symptom resulting from reduced saliva flow. Okay, and so that happens in your mouth. You smoke some weed, sometimes your mouth gets a little dry. Some people, it really doesn't depend on the strain that they're smoking. Some people you can smoke any strain, right, and you'll still get a dry mouth. Some people it's strain relative. So some people can smoke some strains of weed and have cotton mouth. Some people can smoke other strains of weed and have cotton mouth. It really just depends on what is going on with your endocannabinoid system. So let me tell you why it happens in your mouth. So xerostomia or cotton mouth happens in your mouth when you consume weed because what happens is THC binds to the CB1 and CB2 receptors that are in your mouth, in your face. Okay, so the upper quadrant of your body is where the number one place where the majority of CB1, CB2 receptors are in your body. Mostly CB1 receptors are up here, and when THC binds to these receptors, it shuts down your salivary glands, okay? And so it says to your body, we're good here. We don't need to make any more saliva. You're good. Just keep giving me the medicine. Keep making it taste delicious. So when the phytocannabinoids of cannabis, aka THC, binds to the endocannabinoid receptors in our salivary glands, what it does is that it shuts off the receptors, or it tells the receptors to tell our central nervous system, we don't need to do this anymore. We don't need to send this signal to our central nervous system anymore. We don't need to make any more saliva. So that's what happens in our heads, and that's why we get cotton mouth. But Carlen, why do we get cotton vagina? Why does my vagina dry up when I smoke weed? Let's talk about it, because it's a real thing, and it happens to a lot of people. All right, Carlen, why my vagina though? Right? Why is that happening? So here's the thing, is that the mucous membranes that you have in your face are very similar to the mucous membranes you have in your pelvic areas. And the second place where there's a majority of endocannabinoid receptors is in your pelvic area, okay? And THC and CBD are actually really beneficial for your reproductive and genital system, right? There's a large majority of CB1 receptors in your uterus, but then as well in your fallopian tubes and in your ovaries and on and on and on. And essentially wherever it feels good, you're gonna find some endocannabinoid receptors. So it's because same, mucous membranes are all responding to what is going on with the cannabis. So for some people, it is strain and dose dependent. Not everybody gets cotton vagina, but a lot of us do. So it is something that we need to be paying attention to. Consumption methods, so how you consume your cannabis, whether you're smoking it, vaping it, or using it topically as a cannabis lube, or using it as an edible, right? Some people will respond to their consumption method by decreasing their lubrication, especially in their vaginas, and some people will see no change. It really is strain and dose dependent and body dependent. Your body is a snowflake. Everybody is different and unique, and how and what kind of cannabis you consume will also influence that. Another reason though why you may be experiencing even more drier symptoms in your vagina is if you are on birth control. Birth control actually tends to dry you out as well and decrease your vagina's ability to lubricate because of its reaction to the medication in your body. As well, not only birth control, but then where you are at in your cycle. So knowing where you are at in your cycle will help you determine how dry you may be. So if you're mid-cycle and you're ovulating, your body's like, woo, let's have some fun, let's have a potty, release the egg, right? And it's like, you know, it's just celebrating all of that, right? You're gonna be a little bit more lubricated. But especially if you're on birth control, your body isn't going to lubricate as easily and as quickly. And then when you add cannabis on top of that, it's gonna be a thing for you. So what do you do to avoid cotton vagina? Well, you don't stop smoking weed because weed is a good time, but you do take some safety measures like making sure that you incorporate lubricant, right? Any kind of lube that feels good for you and clean in your body. So coconut oil is a really good lube. Olive oil is a really good lube. Grapeseed oil is a really, really good lube. Essentially, whatever it is that you want to put in your mouth, right? Ayurvedic teachings teach us that you don't want to put anything on your skin that you wouldn't put in your mouth. So I kind of try to stay true to that when it comes to putting things in my vagina, right? So water-based lubes are also really, really great. I like to use a nice organic water-based lube if I'm not using oil-based lube if I'm using condoms as my barrier method, right? So it is just about being aware, but making sure that you always have lube, especially if you're a cannabis user, whether that's a canna lube or whether that's a coconut oil or a water-based or a silicone-based lube. Either way, glide with style, have some fun, smoke weed every day, and live your best life. Get your hearts up, goddess. I hope this helped you a little bit. I love you, I love you, I love you.